Hi, everybody. So today's lesson is going to be for Monday, March 30th, and a couple reminders for you all. There will be a new discussion thread, so make sure you're checking there. I post in there a lot. If you have any questions, the answer is probably in there. Bell ringers will be due tomorrow because it is the 31st. It's the end of the month. You should have 12 bell ringers by the time you submit them tomorrow. You have a bell ringer today, so answer your bell ringer question. And we're doing slides 10 through 12 today, okay? So let's get started. Let's recap a little bit. We have policies in the United States to contain the spread of communism, Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech, and how how Europe is completely divided with that Iron Curtain. We have trying to contain the spread, and we have policies like the Marshall Plan, which is like the medicine, and the Truman Doctrine of giving money and resources and aid to these countries to stop the spread of communism potentially, hopefully. Berlin was a huge issue. So now that we have West Germany and East Germany controlled by the Soviet Union and West Germany controlled by the United States and the Allies, Berlin, which is in the center of Soviet-controlled territory, is also divided with West Berlin and East Berlin. So we have the Berlin airlift and the United States delivering resources to the people that live there because we're in control of those people and those citizens, and we are responsible for them. And this is a classic Joseph Stalin move, denying people resources and food and basically, starving them and pushing them to their limits so that they agree with what he wants, which is communism. So this is a classic Joseph Stalin move. We talked about how he did this with the Ukraine as well. So he's not going to give in. And so we do this for almost a year and deliver resources, and eventually Joseph Stalin lifts the blockade. Then NATO and the Warsaw Pact are created. We have the alliance system of, if one of them's attacked, then we all go to war. NATO is still around today. The Warsaw Pact is not, because there is no more Soviet Union. And this is going to come into play when we go through the rest of the unit, because we don't have like a set event that caused the Cold War. Similar to when we think of World War I and how that started, yes, Franz Ferdinand was assassinated, but there were underlying things that kind of built up to this event. We have the main causes, right, or mains causes. So just like World War II, Hitler was invading territory, taking over Poland and all of that. But like, there's other things as well. I can't definitively say that this started World War I, this started World War II, and this started the Cold War. We can't do that. So having like systems in place like the alliance system, like NATO and the Warsaw Pact and everything, building up your alliances, you're kind of preparing for an actual war. That's why the A in alliance is in Maine, so, or like this. There's more than one thing, but our countries are saying, all right, well, this might get bigger and this might get out of control, so I need to do something. First thing, make an alliance system, right? So that actually leads to our slides today. We have slides 10 through 12. Slide 10, it looks like this. It's causes and effects of the Cold War. You will need a summary for this slide. I'm just going to have you, pick a cause and pick an effect, and then connect those two and make it into your summary statement. So let's go through these. Number one of the causes, remember, like I said, we can't just definitively say this is it, so that's why there's a lot. Disagreements between the Allies during World War II and differing goals for post-war Germany and Eastern Europe. So this was the first one and the third one. The Allies knew that they needed to divide up Germany, and this is what they decided on, because, we don't trust them to lead themselves, get rid of their self-determination. So this is what they decided on, chopped it up like it's a pie. Well, the United States is really the only one who has any power to do anything and to help in Europe, because, we didn't have physical fighting in our country. We don't have to rebuild anything, so we can give money and resources to people in Europe to rebuild their country. And we came out of World War II as an economic superpower. So we have a lot of power and influence. And so, not to act like a 2-year-old, but we are going to get our way a lot of the time. And when we don't get our way after World War II, we're going to be very upset. Number 2 is differing U.S. and Soviet political economic systems. Yep. So we have in the United States, we have a capitalist democracy. And then on the Soviet Union, we have a communist dictatorship. So that's going to cause some issues. Remember, this is not democratic peace at all. We can try to have these countries turn into democracies, but not with Joseph Stalin and his force of trying to, spread communism. And we don't want everyone to catch the cold of communism, so that's why we're getting involved. A lot of you said this in your discussion post as well. Are we in an arms race? What's a Cold War? Why are we getting involved in the first place? Why does the United States feel like we need to jump in and save the day? A lot of you did a really nice job of that. The ones that posted and actually paid attention. Thank you. You were talking about, we don't want communism to spread. We feel like it's our right to do that, which is good. Some of you also mentioned, what is a Cold War? And that question that it's not physical fighting. Well, that's true up until the end of the war, Cold War. I mean, we're going to have little proxy wars, which is Korea and Vietnam. So there's not a lot of physical fighting, but tension, threats, intimidation, and, the arms race. Eventually we'll have physical fighting with Korea and Vietnam. Soviet expansion, and then the last one is resistance to that expansion. So they're taking over, they want to institute communism, and we don't want them to. So those are some causes of the Cold War. I really enjoyed reading your guys' summaries for the slides that you did by yourselves. You talked about, that these tensions are just going to increase, and we can't let it get out of hand. So that was kind of a lot of your guys' summaries for the last slide of Unit 6, so nice job on that. So effects of the Cold War. Political and military struggles around the world, that's what I talked about. Political struggles as in preventing communist leaders to take over, intervening in elections, picking the leaders basically, or persuading the people to not vote for the communist leader. Military struggles, that's the Korea and Vietnam proxy wars that I talked about. Increased military spending leading to an arms race. We're going to talk about an arms race today. And that was the discussion post yesterday. What is an arms race? Building up your militaries so that other people don't attack you. Yes. And then the ever-present danger of nuclear war. Yup. I don't know about any of you, but sometimes I just wake up and think about our nuclear weapons, and it's that's a scary thing. That's a scary thing. So yeah, the ever-present danger of a nuclear war. Yikes. Okay, so summary statement for that slide. The next slide, arms race. Literally titled Arms Race. We have two vocab words, arms race and ICBMs. So after World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union left the war, came out of the war as superpowers. So this is kind of where Joseph Stalin gets his I guess, permission or his boldness to just take land that's not his, because he has a lot of power now after World War II, and he got what he wanted at the Yalta Conference and the Potsdam Conference. So we appeased him, and that we should not have. We should not have appeased him at those conferences. Each side remained concerned that the other would gain an advantage. To prevent this, both countries began to build stockpiles of weapons. Remember, once we used our nuclear bombs on Japan, Joseph Stalin's going to say, oh, I want one. So he's going to use spies to gather information on how we make the atomic weapon, and then that information is going to be sent to the Soviet Union so they can make an atomic bomb. Spies are a big thing during the Cold War. Spies are everywhere. We'll talk more about spies as we get through this, but Joseph Stalin's going to have spies in the United States. We're going to have spies in the Soviet Union. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Like I said, we'll talk more about spies later on. So an arms race begins, and whoever has the most weapons, it's not like oh, woohoo, I won. You want to have the most weapons because that means your enemy will not attack you. This is MAD, mutually assured destruction. You're basically saying that, sure, you can attack me and try to destroy me, but I have equal strength, mutually assured. We both can destroy each other. So I'm not going to attack you. It's terrifying. I want to read this bullet point because I really like it. So when Eisenhower took office, he changed military strategies in the United States. Instead of resisting its enemies with armies and soldiers, like we've always done, I have the biggest army, I have the most soldiers, the United States would seek to prevent its enemies from attacking in the first place by promising a devastating nuclear response. This meant that the United States must keep the lead in the race. don't mess with me because I have nuclear weapons. This is why, even up to this day, we have countries who are trying to build nuclear weapons. Because it's like, if you were one of those countries, well, that's not fair. I mean, what if they really did want to attack us and they can't attack us because of nuclear weapons? For them, they're viewing like, oh, that's not fair. But for us, it's like, yeah, that was the plan. Don't mess with us. Don't attack us because we have nuclear weapons. We start to create a hydrogen bomb. The very first one was 3 stories tall and weighed 1,000,000 pounds, so we couldn't use it. It wasn't functional at all. We can't put that on a plane. So eventually we start to make smaller nuclear weapons called ICBMs, which are intercontinental ballistic missiles, intercontinental going from one continent to another continent. These are smaller nuclear weapons that can fit on planes, and our bombers were constantly in the air because our arsenal was always on the move. Like, okay, where do we need to, is anybody threatening us? We just need to fly over and be like, oh, was that a threat? Because we're flying over with our nuclear bombs, right? So those are ICBMs. We're going to have different ones too. Eventually later on when we talk about like John Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis and things. But we are building up our Air Force because that's how we're going to bomb other territories or countries. So we need a bigger Air Force, and we also need more scientists because they're the ones that are producing these ICBMs and making it so that we can bomb from the air or from the ground, really. I mean, that's what North Korea was doing a few years ago. They were someone to watch because they just found out and just discovered, and this is how they are. I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but like this is their government. They lack, information and stuff because they have a dictatorship and he doesn't allow it. So, they just discovered how to get a missile off of the ground. So when we were doing that in the 50s, I mean, they just figured this out in 2016 or 17. I can't remember which year it was. So that was kind of stressful because, we're not really like the closest with North Korea. So what are they doing? And they did something last year too. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, there's somebody to watch. I have pictures. So we have, that mushroom cloud of what you see when the nuclear bomb goes off. And some of you might be like, oh, well, how do you get that picture? So we have planes up in the air taking pictures of when we drop bombs. And those are usually on like islands in the middle of the ocean. And these islands are basically rocks. The United States owns a cluster of islands. And like other countries do as well. Like Japan has a cluster of islands too that nobody lives on. They're not used for anything. So obviously those islands would be completely gone after you have a nuclear bomb dropped on them. Those are ICBMs right here. That's what they look like. They're full of nuclear energy. And I have a political cartoon down there. It says, on no account to be used because the enemy might retaliate. And then the other side says, on no account to be used because the enemy might retaliate. So they are just using bow and arrows. So each side, so imagine like one side's like the United States, the other side's the Soviet Union. Each side has a cluster of atomic bombs, but we're not going to use them because the other one might use theirs. So we can't use one because what if it doesn't completely destroy them and then they use more and they completely destroy us? So that's an arms race. You basically just build up your military. I mean, you build up your weapons and your arms, which is like your weapons and your nuclear weapons. And you just build them up and you don't use them. You just threaten the other side. But it's still scary because like anyone could use it at any time. And what if you have a leader, which foreshadowing, that you don't know how they're going to respond? Like what if they're a little like quick to jump the gun there and we need to calm things down. So there it is. Don't use your weapons because what if I don't completely destroy the other side and then they use theirs, mutually assured destruction, and they completely destroy me? Stressful. Okay, so bell ringers are due tomorrow. Don't forget to do your bell ringer that you have today. Check the discussion thread because I post there all the time. And that's it. All right, bye guys.